revolution in talk radio. Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and today we're pleased to have as a returning guest, Mr. Jorge Gutierrez. Mr. Gutierrez heads the Business and Management and Operations Consulting Group, better known as Bmoc. He is a tested leader with a passion for leadership and professional growth. The focus is on organizational alignment through results-based leadership and leadership development. The group helps individuals and organizations to drive growth. This is accomplished by helping people achieve their goals. The first three segments, we centered on the term of management. We talked about leadership and communications. But there's so much to be said for communications. I'd like to spend the next 15 minutes talking about communications. Communications could extend to anywhere. It doesn't have to be within the corporation, but this is what we're talking about. But communications with everyone, because the way we communicate outside the corporation helps us communicate within the corporation as well. Well, George, welcome back to Liberty Talk Radio.
Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate you having me back again. Thank you very much.
This is my problem, George. When my wife says, "Honey, I'm going out to the store," let's say to Kohl's, where she may buy a dress or something, an outfit. What's in her mind, the picture she has in her mind, is a brand new outfit. The picture in my mind is a decrease in the amount of money in the checkbook. So we're not communicating, are we?
We're communicating, which is translating those messages differently.
Yeah, but this is a real problem. I'm being facetious in a way. I really don't care what you know. But this is what really happens in communications. We say something, and to us it's clear you are hearing exactly what I said, right? And so the picture in your mind is the same picture in my mind, when really that is the case, is it not?
Yeah, that is just not the case. I mean, the picture is always different.
Right.
And that's why communicating, it's a challenge. And anybody that knows me at any level of, type of relationship, whether it is, if you're a startup company or if you're a large company or, whomever it is that I'm trying to serve, one of the very initial things that I share with folks is that the biggest problem statistically that most organizations have is, their ability or inability to communicate. So, so think about it. I mean, how do we communicate internally, and then how do we communicate externally? Yeah. What is the message? And so often we look at marketing, and so we look at branding. So if you understand the rules of marketing, then you have to send out certain messages a certain amount of times out there into the market space, so that hopefully your marketing efforts can turn into a sales process that eventually closes on sort of a deal. So in a way that's large type of communications, but I think what you and I are talking about is how do organizations communicate? How do real people communicate? Well, there's different modes, and one of the things that technology continues to do and challenges with, is that now we have the ability to over communicate, and we all know big data is a big term out there right now, and it's just saturating our ability to comprehend the things that are being thrown at us. So. I mean, think about our kids. I mean, my children. I hate to call them kids because they don't want to be called kids, but they're married or in college and above 20 years old, but they have truly learned to communicate using these devices, these smartphones. And everything is on these things. So if you take people, my age, you take us back a few years, there was a time that even when we were on business, like when I was on my first sales job, we just didn't have a cell phone, so we had to go back and report, our daily activities. So I had to stop, get out of my car, or wait until I got into the hotel room and call my boss and say, hey, this is what I did, and this is what we think. Well, I don't remember having some sort of a CRM process, a customer relations management process where we can log in all our conversations. We did all that by hand. We kept track of conversations, and we developed our own communication strategies and so forth, so that we can get some sort of message out there. Well, if you're in a large corporation right now, like for example, in my company, and we're not a large corporation by any means, but we do have the infrastructure to where I can have an intranet. So I can literally communicate for those people that I serve, whether they're customers or they're some sort of contractual relationship as an employee or an independent contractor. I can send my communication campaign messages very, very clearly through an intranet, and it sort of keeps that human touch that is required. So we have to make an effort to do all of it. We have to use every tool that is available, that will grant us the opportunities for growth. But you cannot replace the type of leadership, that is, close by, whether it be via video or whether it be, person to person.
Yeah. Isn't it true that sometimes the loudest form of communication is to say absolutely nothing?
Well, silence can be heard, and
right.
and I think you're absolutely right about that. But often, so again, I think you're getting to know me well, and I like to bring controversy into the discussion, but also the loudest voice is the voice of dissent.
Right.
So when you get people, really charged up, against whatever issue, and so go back to the TV, whether it's local news or whether it's national news, people find forms of expression in a way that is scary, that is loud. They break things, they burn things, they make a point by doing all these things that cause us to stop what we're doing and pay attention. Now, I'm not advocating that, though, so please, listening audience out there, don't get me wrong. I'm just making an example of who's got the loudest voice, and I think Joe is right. The voice that remains silent, or the voice that oftentimes is abhorrent in the things that they do or the way they communicate.
Yes, silence can be deafening at times.
Absolutely.
Especially if your wife is being very quiet when she normally is not. You're in deep trouble. She doesn't have to say anything. But the same thing occurs in organizations. And I have worked for people who very rarely said anything. And what bothered me is that they gave me the impression that they didn't want to hear what I had to say. And there was always this wall, and I never knew where I stood or whether or not what I was saying was being heard, accepted, or rejected, or I was being evaluated based on what I said and I received no feedback. And boy, I would go home and I would be sick for days whenever that happened.
Yeah, so I think that's really a good point when it comes to to sort of not transactional, but relationships. They are transactional relationships, but when we're talking about the workplace, the more you develop relationships, then the more you get to know the other person, the other individual, and sometimes those moments of silence are not designed, as you being ignored. It deals with personalities and how you process things. So some people are extroverts, some people are introverts. And there are people that literally need a few minutes to sort of think through what it is that you're saying and actually think about it before they give you a response. So one of the things that we talk about, when it comes to either, negotiating a deal or closing a deal or something is don't be too quick to respond, but don't be too late to respond. Right. It's okay to take a pause for about 10 seconds and then engage in a conversation. So here's a lesson that I've learned, and I don't know that I've shared this with you or not, but sometimes, when in leadership positions where the responsibility is very high, like at the chairman level or the CEO level, sometimes it pays to be the dumbest guy in the room, and ask all the right questions that nobody else wants to ask. So when it comes to communications, to trying to get a message across, the first thing that should be coming out of a leader's mind is why, and question everything, and then
Right.
and get the dialogue, the conversation going, so that people can get involved and have an exchange of ideas that eventually they can reach some sort of decision on what it is that they're trying to get done.
Yeah. When I was younger, and I heard this expression when I was working, they say, don't communicate to impress, communicate to express. Is that still alive and kicking, that expression, or communicate?
No, well, it depends on which circles you find yourselves in, and it also depends in sort of the context of what it is that the communicator is trying to achieve. And you will find different types of leaders, and some of them I call them spotlighters. And they want to be on the spotlight. They want to be heard just for the sake of being heard.
Right.
But that's where it stops.
Right.
So again, they can be very articulate. And they can be very well spoken and very educated and so forth. But they will always sound like an empty board. Because. Right. All you get is words and suits and ties and looking pretty, But when you see a leader in an organization, or even a manager that is in a leadership position, and they are truly engaged, in a relationship with their teams, you will see that they lead by doing, and not necessarily by saying.
Right.
So they'll use things like this: follow me, and then they will lead you. They will walk in the direction that they want you to go, or they will grab something and say, this is how you do it, and they teach you how to do things, and they impress you by their actions and not by their words.
George, we have about 2 minutes to go before we get shut off altogether, whether we like it or not. So let me give you the last 2 minutes to sum everything up.
Well, thank you, Joe. I really appreciate the time to talk about leadership, management, and communications. And I think the most difficult thing that we do is to communicate, particularly in a corporate environment, that is so diverse, both ethnically and also of thinking. So it is a challenge, I think, that we as leaders and managers need to sort of embrace and take it upon ourselves to develop our communication skills, number one. And then number two, to truly learn how to listen, right. how to engage in the process of listening. It doesn't mean that you're going to be swayed from your point of view or that you're not going to do the right thing. But I think our earlier discussion talked about how some people feel like they're not heard, like they don't have a voice, and they feel like they don't make any contributions within the organization. And I think we can change that by engaging in a communications process that truly listens to what people are trying to say.
Yeah. And the job could be a lot more enjoyable, and when people enjoy their job, they're more productive, and as a result, you become more competitive. So it's a win-win and win all the way around.
Exactly. So it's a win-win, and the bottom line, it's always affected in a very good way.
Right, and you make a world a better place. George, thank you so much for being on our show. We really enjoyed the segment that we have, and we do hope you will accept our invitation to return at a later date.
All right, thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Folks, this is the end of today's program. I'm Joe Cristiano. We hope you enjoy the segment with Mr. Jorge Gutierrez. He's the business manager and operations of Business Management Operations Consulting Group, and you can look him up on the web. I think it's bmocgroup.com. Okay, and he's a consulting group that deals with communications within the organizations, and they do a fine job. So if you work for an organization, give them a call. Okay. Right now, this is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well, stay tuned.